the storm inside, it brings me to my knees, nowhere to hide. This weight is crippling. Come speak to the sea that's raging inside of me. All of this worry, to you I will release.
Thought of this song earlier. I heard it playing, and I had it been singing it recently, and so and everybody knows it. It's Why Should I Worry? But I got to thinking about how so many times we get caught up in life, and we get caught up in the worries of this life, and it gets easy to forget you have someone to turn to. And so I'm so thankful that He's with us.
Raging high, waters around them were troubled that night. Fear filled their hearts, they thought they might die. They failed to remember that the Master was nigh. Then He spoke the words, the winds all stood still, even the waters obeyed His will. He'll calm your storm just like He will mine, if I'll just remember that He lives deep inside. Why should I worry? Why should I fear? That very same Jesus, He stays always near. He lives in my heart. He hears when I cry. I can call on His name till the storm passes by. I read in the Bible how He walked with them, brought light to the darkness when the way grew dim. How great it would be to have His steps lead in mine, to walk with the Master all of the time. Then troubles came, and death was so nigh. They searched for the Master, hoped He'd get there on time. So when I'm in trouble and my body's in pain, all I have to do is call on His name. So why should I worry, and why should I fear? That very same Jesus, He stays always near. He lives in my heart, and He hears when I cry. I can call on His name until the storm passes by. So why should I worry, and why should I fear? The very same Jesus, He stays always near. He lives in my heart, and He hears when I cry. I can call on His name until the storm passes by. I read in the Bible how He walked with great it would be to have his steps lead in mine, just to walk with the Master all of the time. Then troubles came and death was so nigh. They searched for the Master, hoped he'd get there on time. So when I'm in trouble and my body's in pain, all I have to do is just call on his name. So why should I worry, and why should I fear? That very same Jesus, he stays always near. He lives in my heart, and he hears when I cry. I can call on his name till the storm passes by. So why should I worry, and why should I fear? 'Cause the very same Jesus, he stays always near. He lives in my heart, and he hears when I cry. I can call on his name till the storm passes by. I can call on his name, just call on his name till the storm passes by.
Aren't you glad we serve the God of the storm? I'm so glad that he knows where we're at in every storm, in every trial, in every situation. He knows where we're at. If you have your Bibles tonight, you want to turn to Genesis chapter number 50. Genesis chapter number 50, verse number 20. But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive. Romans 8:28. You think we can quote it together? And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Will you help me pray? In Proverbs, chapter number 25, verse number 28, the Bible tells us that he that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broke down and without walls. many of you tonight are going to lock your doors when you go home? If we remember to. How many of you have ever thought about just leaving the windows open, the doors open, don't worry about it, and just, now if you live out in the country, that's one thing. If you lived in Portland, what would you do? Put bars over the window? I'd move to Arkansas is what I'd do. But if you were in some of them places, you wouldn't dream of. You wouldn't think, there's no way that you would even dream of not locking your windows and doors and making sure and securing your stuff. Well, as we've been working our way through this, and I've been boring you to death, I'm sure, but we've been working our way through this life of Joseph, and we've made our way up to the point where I believe we made it last time to where Joseph is just fixing to reveal who he is. It's the last time that Joseph has a conversation with them. And after Judah made that wonderful prayer, how many of you read that? Chapter number 45, verse 18, all the way down through the end. You ought to read it. It's really amazing how he just lays it all out there, and it's such an emotional time for Joseph to be able to stand there and listen to him talk, and as he pleaded with him, and he took full responsibility of his problem. He took full responsibility of not living right and trying to hide their sin. I mean, he just laid it out there. And Joseph is standing there. Now you have to put yourself in this place where Joseph is to realize there are men and women there that give an account to Pharaoh on what Joseph is doing. So while they're in there, and these Hebrews have done come back, and they're coming back here, and they brought Simeon out, and everybody's around, and there's some men that are standing around. And that day, you know, Joseph was, how many's ever heard men don't cry? How many of you men have ever been told big boys don't cry? How many of you ladies have ever heard that? How many of you ladies have ever heard big girls don't cry? Some of you learn it quits working after a while. But they here Joseph is about, I think it's the fourth time that we read where Joseph has either hid to cry, or Joseph has took himself away from the situation to where that he could go and cry, because the test was to the brothers. Joseph had done come through his problem. Joseph done come through his situation. God had done exalted him, and now Joseph is standing here again, and and Judah has gave this amazing intercessory for his brother and his father and all of these, and while Judah's making this intercessory prayer to Joseph to, hey, and now Joseph pulls himself away and he's crying. And I mean, he can't take it no more. Isn't it amazing that Jesus came out of the very tribe that Judah's the one that was interceding. And you can look way on down to the future and you can see where Judah, he's brought out of the tribe of Judah, that seed of David, the one that was going to die for every one of us. Isn't that amazing? I mean, you could spend some time right there talking about the plan of salvation, just because, do you know it's important what you fathers do? Do you know that as the head of your home, I said fathers, as the head of your home, it's important what you do. what Judah done here wound up being the very one that God used to bring Jesus into the world. I don't know about you, but sometimes we need to be careful what we do. That was free. We'll go on. But out of all of these brothers, Judah's the one that steps up and says, hey, hold on a second. Now Judah has told them, and Joseph steals away, and he's crying. And he comes back to him and he says, I am Joseph. Now, hold on. You've already jumped all the way ahead, and you've got the wagons coming down the road. Yeah! Hold on just a second. Simeon has been in jail until they ran out of provisions. Now they're in this court or in this mansion where Joseph is at. And he says, y'all got to get out of here. He tells all of them, you got to leave. You got to go on. This is between me and them. Now he's got all of his people there, his family there, and says, I'm Joseph. That don't mean nothing to you, does it? He begins to reveal himself, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but there's times when I've been reading through this, and believe it or not, I want to go to Exodus. That's where I want to get to. But you got to know, how long have we been a country? 1776, how much more time we got to 400? $150 more years. They were in Egypt that long. There were, we'll get into that some other time. They went down to Egypt. Right now there's only 10 of them, 12 of them. They're all standing before, and God is working in this whole situation. You know why? If you look on over there, we're going to get into it tonight anyway. But if you look on over there, he's telling Jacob, hey, I'm going to take you down to Egypt. And when I get you down to Egypt, there I'm going to make you a nation. For 400 years, they have multiplied to the point that they are. But you back up and you look at this scene where he's told everybody to leave. I'm Joseph. Now, can you imagine? Now, I know there's some of you been caught with your hand in the cookie jar. Some of you, you're perfect. I can tell. I can tell. And when someone else messes up, we can tell. But for those of you that are not as perfect as others, have you ever had guilt just start eating on you? I wanted to get y'all's attention. Every time you turn around, just steadily, that guilt just constantly just hammering your head about what you've done. And finally you go to them and say, hey, listen, I took your Oreos. This guilt is eating away at these folks. It's constantly just chewing at them. You know, people will say stupid stuff whenever they're guilty. You ever heard of the phrase, hurting people hurt people? It's easy for them to hurt people because they're hurt. And because I'm hurt, you're going to hurt. You just watch them. It's like having a porcupine in a corner. You're wasting your time. Wait till they do whatever they do to go back down, and they'll kind of, you can hurt them around after a while, but sometimes you got to, all the married men are going, uh-huh. Why? There's hurting people like to see other people hurt. People that are guilty love to have something to hang over somebody else. And when they get it, now what would you have done if you was in Joseph's place? Well, if I knew that I was going to be in the Old Testament and I knew that God was going to do all this, then I'd probably do exactly the same thing Joseph did. You lie, come on down here, we got to pray right now. You know good and well, some of you would have said, to the dungeons you go. We do it for less. I said we, right? Joseph has took the time to let God use him, to be patient with them, to see where they're at in their life. And there were times, hey, if you're going to be a leader, there's times when you have to be patient with broken people. There's times where we have to learn to be patient, and sometimes broken people say, thank you, Sister Holden. Have you heard that before? Sometimes people that are broken, they're not satisfied unless everybody is a part of their pity. So Joseph has took himself, and while he's putting on this test for them, he goes over here and cries. You know what he's doing? He's controlling his emotions. You've never had a problem with that? Let me bring your kids up here. Have you ever looked up emotions? Joseph has learned to control his emotions. Now, I want to tell you, if you get somebody spitting in your face, it's kind of hard. Unless he's a drill sergeant. You get somebody that's ready to slap you upside the head, it's a little tough. Joseph has learned and has went through this to the point that God is able to trust him in this situation. Now it's time for him to reveal himself. And he says, I'm Joseph. And they're blown away. I mean, they are absolutely astonished. Great fear came upon them all when they realized that's the guy that we sold. Now, I wonder which one of them looked at the other one and said, you did that. I wonder which one of them looked at the other one and said, I told you you shouldn't have done that. When you look at what they begin to tremble. At first, they didn't believe it. They didn't believe a word of it. They were like, I mean, they've kept this secret for 20-something years. They haven't so now, remember, they're already thinking he's some kind of Egyptian guru guy because he can see the future. So now they're thinking, whoa, wait a minute. You're Joseph? Yeah, but we've already mentioned our brother. Maybe he's just kind of being, but when he said the one that y'all sold, they knew exactly. Wow. What a reckoning. All of a sudden, they realize, and then they get scared. Have you ever had that scared where your fingers begin to tingle? That scared where parts of your outer extremities start to go numb because you realize you're in a life or death situation. Not to the numb place where you're paralyzed. Some people go that way. But to the place where you realize, I wonder if they just, whoa. Because now they're at the mercy of this Egyptian man. But here's what I want to talk to you a little bit about. Joseph looked at him and said, come closer. Come closer. Come closer. The song said, out on the water, Jesus drew nigh. Joseph said, come a little closer. And when they got closer to him, I wonder if it's because they see his eyes. I've read what other commentaries say. I mean, there are promises and there are things that God gave to the Hebrews. This was a Hebrew boy. It could have been many things. But when he told them to come closer and he looked them straight in the eye and said, Simeon, I'm Joseph. He said, Reuben, I'm Joseph. Hey, Zubal, I'm Joseph. I'm the one that y'all sold. They realized, oh my goodness, this is he. This is the one that we have sold. And I mean, this is the one. What are we going to do now? I'm talking about fear coming upon them in such a great measure. Man, they're ready to. What would you do? How much talking would you do? Now they're sitting there, and when you read what Joseph tells them, now therefore, be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves. Don't be mad. You see the maturity that he had. Because why? Because his perspectives was not on what was going on around him. His perspectives was what was going on right here. And if God is going to bring me to the trial, God is going to give me the grace to walk on through it. If God is going to bring me to this place, then God must have a plan. I know some people have said, well, God made them guys do evil. No, man made them do evil. That's the consequences. But even when men around us do evil, we can still have our perspective in line with God, that though they slay me, yet will I serve him. Though they spit on me, yet will I stay in contact with him. You know why? Because I've come closer. I've come closer to him. And now it's not about anything that they do, but it's about what God wants. He told them. Now therefore, be not grieved nor angry with yourselves that ye sold me hither. For God, for God did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in the which there shall neither be ear nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you. Even though you sold me, God sent me here. Even though you hate me, God put me here. Even though you don't like this or that, God put, this is Joseph saying, hey, God is the one that brought me here. God is the one that set him. Verse number 8, now. So now, it was not you that sent me hither, but God. And he hath made me a father to Pharaoh and Lord of all of his house and a ruler throughout all the land of Israel. Egypt. So God is the one that brought him through there. God, but God. But God. Yeah, but you don't understand my situation. You don't understand what I've been going through. I mean, it's the worst trial since the Great Depression. But God. Yeah, but this sickness, it's worse than the Black Death, the plague of Black Death, and it's going to get me, I'm for sure. But God, you don't understand, brother. These bills are piling up, and now they want to do. But God, you don't understand, brother. I've got so much guilt on me that I can't hardly go to sleep at night. But God, but you don't understand, my friend. I know you don't understand, my God. Out on the water, out in the storm, when everybody else is panicking, but God come walking on the storm that night. Hey, you need a but God experience in your life so you can realize that God has brought us to this place. But God, oh, but they've been lost for so long. They've been sinners for so long that they'll never even think of God. But God, you don't understand, Brother Holden. I've talked to him time and time and time again. But God can do it. God is the one that can change a broken heart. God is the one that can heal a broken marriage. God is the one that can bind up the wounded spirit. Come a little closer. Come a little closer. What if they would have backed away? What if they would have decided, what if they would have ran? What if they would have said, I'm not going to accept it? Now, how much sense does that make? Wait a minute. Jesus came to them. He came right there. Right there where they're at. And he healed somebody of all kinds of spirits. And while he has this conversation with them pigs, send us to the pigs. Now, wait a minute. We would, if we can't abide in this human, send us to the pigs. So all of these spirits, he says, okay, Jesus says, okay, go to the pigs. So every one of these spirits, I mean, this man was bound. I mean, this man was, he was psycho. Now all of these spirits have left and went into the pigs. The pigs didn't like the devils anymore. They was willing to run off a cliff. Some things we live with an animal. Anyway. Then they come to Jesus. They came to him. Said, sir, will you leave? Can you imagine? Now, Jesus healed the blind, right? Jesus walked on the water. Jesus healed the lame. I mean, he healed the woman that touched the hem of his garment. I mean, what miracle did he not do? And yet they said, leave us alone. They could have had their but God moment. But they said, we don't want none of your kind. Can you imagine? I don't want you, Jesus. I want my pills. I don't want you, Jesus. I want my addictions. I wonder if that man that was sitting there was saying, whoa, wait a minute, wait. You know what I was, but Jesus came, and now I am this. They said, yeah, I understand that, but we don't want Jesus. We want our pigs. Are you kidding me? You'd rather have a pig? And we ain't talking about Arkansas Razorback. You'd rather have the pigs than have the master? Now, could you imagine going to bed every night with a pig? Now, could you imagine sitting at the supper table every night with a pig? Could you imagine walking around in the yard every day with pigs? I wonder if they didn't never get tired of their pigs. They stink. I mean, they got this big old pond, and they got all kinds of mud and dirt and all this stuff, and they would rather have the pigs. Hey, the prodigals at least was smart enough to say, hey, I'm done with this. I'm going home. But these people said, Jesus, you leave us alone. We want our pigs. That just blows my mind. But how many times has Jesus said, come closer? Come closer. Come closer. And we said, I'd rather have my pig. How many times has Jesus said, this is where you need to move up, Grace Chapel? And we said, yeah, but I'd rather have my pig. These young men could have lived with their doubt, lived with their guilt, lived with all of that. And Joseph said, hey, God did it for a reason, for a purpose. Yet we read here just a little while later, he tells them, when you go home, don't have a falling out. You know why? Because that guilt kept banging on their head and kept on screaming. And it was guilt that drove Judas to jump and hang himself. Hey, friend, Jesus wants to forgive. Jesus wants to give you one of them moments when Jesus comes in to your storm, into your life, and change it completely around. We're the ones that decide, nah, I'd rather have my stuff. I'd rather have my pig. I'd rather have my guilt. I'd rather have my bitterness. I'd rather have my attitude. I'd rather have I could go down a whole list. I wonder how many of us, instead of letting the master come in, have said, yeah, you do great things. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I believe the Bible, Brother Holden. The Bible's true. The Bible's right. The Bible's good. But, you see, I've got this career. You see, I've got this, and so, you know, that's for somebody else. You know what you're saying, don't you? I'd rather have my pig. I probably should have brought a pig out here. That'd make it better, wouldn't it? I wish I had a real pig. That'd be even cooler. For you to actually see. I mean, at one youth camp, they had this little contest, and whoever lost had to kiss a pig. That's a great idea. But how many of us have chose to live with the pig? What is the pig? It's your favorite sin. It's your pet peeve, sin, that you don't want the preacher to talk about because guilt starts banging. I'm trying to get to Exodus, y'all. I want to get these people down to Egypt and get them out of here. But we're stuck getting there. There's a reason. Would you rather have a pig? Would you rather have every other weekend with your kids? Go to Walmart on a Saturday and watch as one man shows up and a woman shows up. The kids grab all of their luggage and jump out and run to get in the car with Dad. It's important what you're doing right now. Would you rather have a pig than to have Jesus in your life? You know what Joseph did? When they took his clothes, he gave them clothes. When they took his liberty, Joseph gave them. When they took his food, Joseph gave them extra. That's grace. That's what grace does. You know what grace does? I read a story about a woman. They had told her that her husband was wounded and had been hurt bad. And he quit writing her, quit calling her, quit talking to her. You know what grace does? Grace finds out where he's at. You know what grace does? Grace gets a plane ticket. You know what grace does? Grace goes to the base. You know what grace does? Grace walks into the ward where they're not even recognizable from the wounds. You know what grace does? Grace finds her husband or her mate, and grace walks up and says, it don't matter what you look like, I still love you. You know what grace did? Grace said, you meant it for evil, but God had a plan. Hey, I would rather choose grace than to pass that by and choose to live with a pig. I'd rather have grace abounding in my life. Will you stand with me? Maybe we'll get to the wagons for too long. Grace sent the wagons. When he could have, grace said, send wagons. When they stripped him of everything he had and put him on a camel, sold him, grace took chariots and wagons and sent them. What are we choosing today? What are we choosing? Are we choosing grace? Or are we choosing a pig? Where are we at today? Are you choosing to have Jesus? Or are we choosing, nah, not today? Can I tell you, friend, you're not going to like the consequences. Well, Brother Holden, everybody here, I know. I was going to go toward the wagons, but my heart stirred. Maybe it's somebody online. You're not going to like the consequences. That pig may be cute. He may have them big old long ears and everything looks cute and all that for now. But he's going to grow up. He's going to eat you out of house and home. All them joys of life. He's going to eat you out of house and home. And then he's going to start stinking. Wouldn't you rather have Jesus? Come closer. Come closer. Somebody's making decisions that are leading them to the pigs. Joseph is offering grace. Jesus is offering grace. Yeah, but it just don't. Grace saying, come closer to me. What happened to you? Why don't we gather in here today? I know it's different. Why don't we gather in? Grace. Or pigs. The snorting of a pig was more important than the master. Lord, help us to exhibit grace. Oh, God. Help us to exemplify grace. In the name of Jesus, Lord, help us to be established in your grace. Oh, come on, church, let's pray. Come on, church, let's pray. What if it's your loved one? What if it's your loved one? Sometimes we don't even know what's going through minds. What if it's your friend? Oh, in the name of Jesus, Lord. Oh, come on, friend.
to